Alex. Welcome to our very, very, very first completely remote day of filming. Now, I'm not sure when this episode will go out. It'll probably go out in the not too distant future, actually. But here we are, right in the heart and the middle of Sydney's lockdown 2, where we're not allowed out. And I, unfortunately, are sitting here on my own in a new studio with no one around me, and you are at home, and we're not having the normal experience that we do. But welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you on. We've been trying to get you on for ages, and you've just been so insanely busy. For the sake of the viewers, why don't you just give us a quick snapshot of where you're at now? We'll talk about some of the stuff you've done previously later, because there's some really interesting things I want to touch on. But talk to everyone about where you are right now and what your role is right today.
Yeah, look, it's great to be here. And of course, such a shame I can't be there in person, but I think we're getting pretty accustomed to on screen and having that feeling really personal. So I'm Alex, and I'm the Chief People Officer for Employment Hero. We are an end-to-end people management platform, all in one, an Australian startup founded by Ben Thompson. And we most recently announced our capital raise Series E of $140 million. So super exciting. We're on a real ride, and it's been certainly interesting dealing with lockdown and remote work.
140 million. Tell me, how many companies have gone to Series E? You don't hear Series E very often. How many Australian companies have got to Series E? There's quite a few that have made D. Are there any others that have made E?
Yeah, you'd get Canva up. Oh, no, they've gone public now. There'd probably be less than 10 that have gone to E, because many have gone public. And you would have recently seen Afterpay, who had an absolutely phenomenal buyout over in the US. I think it was $29 billion. So yeah, we're really becoming very popular in Australia with these unicorns coming out. And it's really, really fantastic for Australia. No,
it's so exciting. And look, Employment Hero is... It's a very cool product. I know it well. And obviously we've been working together for a little while, and it's a very, very cool business. And you're expanding globally now, right? We were working with you, I think, in the UK, and I think we're going to be working with you in Asia. And it's an insane. I always think it's insane when Australian companies can go and dominate the world, when there's so many other countries and so many other businesses in the UK and the US that are starting up. When Australian companies go out and they absolutely dominate, I just think it's exciting. It's just so exciting.
Oh, it really is. And it's so exciting to be part of that, and to be, located with leadership where the decisions are being made, where innovation's happening, and where you are really pushing the boundaries as a leadership team in terms of what you're doing as a business.
Absolutely. Now, you've been there, is it coming up 4 years or something? Is that about right? Am I thinking?
Over 3 years.
Yeah, okay. Now, you've had a fascinating history. I know you spent a significant amount of time in the US. One of the things we always love to do is just talk a little bit about your story. And how you got to where you are. And obviously you want to go through everything that you achieved in your life. But, you started out working here in Australia before you went to the US. I guess let's start there. What drove you to head over there, and when was that? And then you had about 4 or 5 different roles over there. You were there for some time, weren't you? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was in New York for 10 years, and what drove me there, I had a midlife crisis at 25 years old, and I decided that HR was not strategic in Australia. I also had always dreamt of studying at Cornell University. So at 25 in 2011, I quit my job, and then unfortunately September 11 happened. I was always planning on going over. My friends thought I was insane. Thankfully, my parents were very supportive. So off I went. It took me 6 months to find a job due to 9/11 having occurred. And I landed at monster.com, which was a great ride, and then was part of divesting TMP, directional marketing, and I became VP of HR as we divested that. And that was like getting an MBA in itself. Having divested a company, certainly have been part of a lot of mergers, but that was my first ever divestiture. I then finished my Cornell degree and was ready to move on. And I wanted to work for Yahoo or Google at the time. I was fortunate enough to interview with both companies. I chose Yahoo at the time. They had a more compelling brand at that particular time. And with Google, I think I went through 23 interviews, which was crazy. Wow. Sitting in my apartment with my family, in New York, and we were talking about the fact that I was about to hit my 10-year anniversary of living in New York, and the phone rang while my family were there, and it was Google calling me again and offering me a job in Singapore. So packed up my bags again, moved over to Singapore to head up APAC sales HR for Google, and that was a really great ride. There was probably only 300 people in Singapore at the time for Google, and it grew to well over 3,000 while I was there. Moved back to Australia, was really fortunate that Google supported that. However, I realised that it was really untenable to do my role in Australia, and decision-making was very centralised towards Mountain View. I wanted to be part of a leadership team where I could be part of the innovation and not just executing on decisions that were being made in another country. And I then was at a startup in Sydney where I actually implemented Employment Hero, and that was a great ride. I got to see what the product did in terms of elevating my role to be really strategic, engaging employees, giving managers real hand to their employees' data. And then lo and behold, serendipity, Ben Thompson approached me when Employment Hero did their Series B round. I thought we were just catching up for coffee. However, it was to talk about the opportunity that they had with Series B to invest in a chief people officer. And I ended up working for Employment Hero, which has been a great ride. That's
a hell of a ride, right? So if we go back a little bit, right, that role at Monster, that was for your age, that was a big role. That would have been, that's an amazing achievement to have got a role like that. And then to go through a divestment, like you said, at that age, that's awesome. I understand why you say that was an MBA. And I think probably the funniest thing is that you chose Yahoo over Google, which, there's plenty of our viewers that will not understand that, right? Because they'll be too young. I understand it because I remember that time, and Yahoo had an amazing brand. And But I think now, if you ever said that to someone who was probably under, I don't know, let's just say 30, they'd be going, what? But what an incredible pedigree of experience to have had, not just in those organizations, but those organizations in the US. It's amazing. Now, one of the things that always happens on all podcasts is people talk about all the wonderful things. Tell me what, out of all of those things, and maybe not the first getting a job with 9/11, because that would have obviously been very difficult. But if you remove that, which is an unusual scenario, maybe something that other people can relate to more, what's been the biggest struggle, either in the journey to get to where you are today, or what's been the biggest struggle with going from Series B to Series E, which is probably something people are also very interested in, because that is a massive journey in itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So biggest struggle was a career mistake where I joined a company that was not purpose-driven, and it really didn't care about its people. It was all speak during the interview process. However, when I landed there, people were not high on the agenda, and I struggled, and I stayed for a year, and I shouldn't have. I should have made the call within the first couple of months to just move on, because when you're at the table just continuously fighting for the people and to think about the people and not just think about revenue. However, I learned a lot from that, and that is to stick to your values and always treat people beautifully and make sure that it's everyone's role at the leadership table to be thinking about people and culture. It's not just the head of HR or the head of people and culture. Great question in terms of going from Series B to Series D. A lot of work goes into it, obviously, from the CEO and the CFO having to go out and pitch. From a celebration perspective, it's great for all of our people, but also taking them through the journey is really important in terms of that change management. And going global was a real learning curve for us in coming into Series D and then Series E. So just changing that mindset from being very Australian-centric to make sure we're inclusive to all of the new countries that we've moved to, new time zones, and learning to work asynchronously. So what that means is how can you not make people feel left out by holding a meeting when their time zone doesn't allow for it. And certainly I learned that a lot being in the APAC region, working for global companies, where we were always kind of at the A end of the world and on 3 a.m. Video calls because they didn't quite understand the time zone of APAC.
Yeah, we have also gone global, and I'm learning that very quickly as well. It's actually quite difficult to get everybody in at the same time. So you touched on something that is really interesting, particularly for, I think, our viewers, the people aspect. Obviously, if we look at the way the world is today, everyone knows people are the most important thing. There's a shortage of people across the world for this enormous tech boom that the world is going through. But I think your story is quite interesting. So Employment Hero has grown at what sort of rate are we talking about here in Australia? So if we go from when you joined, how many staff were there then?
There were 42 in Australia, and
42.
now we are nudging 348 globally.
Okay, so that's insane, right? So fast growth and accelerated growth is something that we spend a lot of time doing. It is very, very difficult to get this right. Employment Hero has always had an amazing reputation for staff retention. And, I look at a lot of the leaders that they've been there a long time, right? But it also had a reputation in the early days of hiring a lot of young people. How have you managed to keep them there and keep them motivated in a world where traditionally they were moving all the time and quite regularly, and it was becoming more the norm to not stay with an organization a long time, like perhaps it was 15 years ago? You seem to have been very, very successful at that. How have you done that? What do you think you've done differently, other than just be a good product and grow? What has the business done, and maybe some of the initiatives you might have even put in that you think have contributed to that?
Yeah, look, and certainly I can't take credit. We have the most wonderful leadership team and wonderful managers. And I think that's one of the big things that does keep people around. We also have a real focus during the recruitment process on people who are purpose-driven. We're a very purpose-driven company. We're not just selling widgets. We're actually out there solving problems for small to medium businesses and helping them grow and helping them to engage their employees. So we make sure at the outset that values and purpose piece is ticked off in the initial screening stage. So we don't want someone who's just here for the money. For example, we want someone who is actually believing in our product. And then I think, reminding people all the time in our all hands about our customer stories and how their roles really align to the overall purpose and objectives of the company. We introduced something called objectives and key results across the company about 18 months ago. And that's really important so that you understand whether you're in marketing or sales, whatever job you're in, how does your role actually align to the purpose of the company and to the company's annual objective? What is it that you're trying to achieve and what are you doing that helps to get you there? Because it really aligns people to understand when we're celebrating revenue, they know that even if they're not in the sales team, they know they've contributed to that. Customer happiness and obsession, that you've contributed to that in some way, shape or form because we talk about it on a regular basis with communication. We're also really big on reward and recognition. And yes, we've had to shift and pivot during remote work and lockdowns, but making sure we align our reward and recognition to our values and having values champions. So we really live and breathe our values. Quite often in companies, you hear about them on day one during your induction, or they're slapped up on a wall somewhere. We don't even have them on the wall in our office. So we really make sure we focus on that and celebrate people and let people make mistakes. Let people innovate to make sure that they feel safe. Psychological safety is something that's really big at the moment. So making sure our managers are giving their employees the psychological safety to say if they're struggling, especially during remote work, or if they're stressed, or if they want to have a conversation about their career and moving around. Career development also. I'm always so proud when we're able to promote someone within our organisation rather than going external and then backfilling them. And that's been a really big thing that we've been doing, as well as Ben, our founder and CEO, says on almost every all hands, look at the open roles and put your hand up. Don't wait to be asked. And I think that's a really vital thing as well. And look, we play hard and we work hard. So as much as we work really, really hard, again, we do celebrate things that just go off in our Slack channel in terms of recognising each other and celebrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So talk to me, obviously, I think the last 12, 18 months have been quite interesting for everyone in a lot of different ways, but you've also grown exponentially during that period. How have you managed that growth? And I think something I'll probably ask a lot of people at the moment, particularly onboarding in a time where, look, here we are talking over a screen, unfortunately. And it's, as much as we're all getting much more used to it, as much as everyone's becoming probably more highly skilled at using video and talking over video, which is great, it's not our natural way as human beings. How have you managed to make sure that people coming on board during these times have felt the same level of inclusion that they would have done previously?
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. One of the first things I did with my team was, in March last year, when we went into lockdown, was to have a brainstorming session around how could we illustrate our culture to new hires, not just during interviewing, but once they sign their contract. We came up with a really fantastic welcome pack that we send them, which is very much branded and a little bit cheeky. So it had toilet paper in it, their first drink for their happy hour at our all hands, obviously a branded T-shirt, and all of that kind of stuff in there as well. And we still get great comments on LinkedIn, and people just love how personalised it is. And in that is a personalised note from their manager welcoming them to the team. And then we included in that what we called a remote first playbook, which helped to explain to people what tools to use and when. So, for example, use Slack only for internal communications, know when to have a video and not put an essay into Slack, and all the different tools that you should be using so that they could read through that and have it on hand before even starting with us. And then what was onboarding going to look like? So we kind of overhauled our induction. We do Wednesday starts so that it's not so overwhelming for new hires, and it's also not overwhelming for hiring managers who used to get stressed on a Sunday night. Oh, I'm not ready for Alex to join tomorrow, but by a Wednesday, they're absolutely ready to have their new hires starting. And then virtual get to know you sessions for teams where we'll have teams come on and people will dial in and we'll ask our new heroes random questions, and we'll just throw it to them. What's the most recent photo on your phone? Show it to us and tell us what its meaning is to you. So things to actually get to know them. And also holding those social virtual events is really, really important so that people can get to know people outside their teams. We're working on mentoring programs and other things as we continue to get feedback from employees. And as we get larger, it's not easy, but you do have to keep asking your new people for feedback on what can be improved, and make sure you take action and talk to your managers and your leaders about that.
Okay, cool. That's good. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Alex. So, Alex, in terms of yourself, you sort of summarised your career earlier. You decided Australia didn't have the sophistication for you, so you went over to the US. You then went to Singapore, and then you came back, which I think to have that level of foresight and drive at a young age is amazing, and that's something that people just tend to have. What do you think, I guess, drives you now? Because you've achieved all these amazing things, you work for all these companies, and you're in this amazing company right now, and it's a hell of a sort of past work history. What's driving you now in terms of where you're going? I'm always interested by people who achieve a real huge amount at a young age. What keeps that drive driving? Because a lot of people don't get it until a little bit later. You obviously had it very early. I'm interested to know. Tell me, what is it that really pushes you? I know that wasn't on the prep sheet, but there's just I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking, I want to know more about what makes you tick.
Yeah, look, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever actually asked myself that question. I think I've always pushed myself to overachieve, whether it was in sport, at school, all the way through to what I do now. Although that career mistake that I talked about, I think really taught me how purpose-driven I am. And so when I think about what drives me now, it's the absolute purpose of Employment Hero to make employment easier and more rewarding for everyone through this incredible platform that we have. And everyone at Employment Hero inspires me and pushes me to do the best I can for them as our people, and to make our culture as good as it can be, to make us the next Australian unicorn. We're always innovating, and that is inspiring, just watching how much commitment our people have. And so how can I drive them to make sure they're recognised and rewarded, and that they're taken care of, and that our leadership team are doing the best that we can in every business decision we make? How do we drive that through our culture? How do we manage change management? How do we make sure we're looking after our people? Just those types of things drive me. So it's gaining happiness out of watching our people be happier and more engaged and more productive in their roles.
Cool. Okay. Tell me, what's been the biggest change outside of work for you through lockdown? I'm going to ask, this is a question I'm going to ask everybody, I think, at the moment, because are we 6-7 weeks in? And I think we're about halfway.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's I don't know. I find it funny. I found it a little bit more difficult at the beginning. I've kind of got into a routine now, but then it kind of also seems like there is a light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, although it seems a long way away. But what's been for me, I'll tell you what I've done to maybe give you a little bit of time to think about that question as well. I've started swimming every day in the ocean, which is something that I thought only old people did, because only old people have ever told me that. And maybe I'm old now, but it's something that people say is very good for your circulatory system, particularly when the water's so cold right now. But I thought, I've got this time. I want to get away from the kids. I want to get away from everyone. It's something you can do. Is there any new habit you've picked up during this time?
It's probably actually the reverse, sadly. So the biggest change for me would be lack of exercise. I used to walk to and from the office every day, which is about a 35-minute walk.
Yep.
And just because we've been so insanely busy, not dissimilar to you, we've been hiring in the UK. So it's meant, doing later interviews and later inductions for the team over there. So this weekend, I actually made a shift and I did 2 3-hour walks, both on Saturday and Sunday. And I can't tell you how much fresher I was on Monday, how well I slept on Sunday night. So not dissimilar to you finding swimming. It's something that I just have to force myself to be doing. And that is taking some time out for yourself. And another big change is, I guess, the social aspect of your life suddenly becoming Zoom. So doing a happy hour with your friends or your family over Zoom on a Friday night or a Saturday night to mix things up.
Yeah, it's weird. We do the social Zooms. I'm not a fan. I find them a little bit disengaging.
Awkward.
Awkward's probably. And if there's more than 3 people, everyone talks over each other. It gets really difficult. We actually did a dinner party with, was it 4 couples? It was a disaster because everyone was just trying to talk at the same time. But the exercise is good. Look, I do have to. I'm like you. I'm very busy. I force myself to do it at about sort of 3:30 every day. I didn't want to do it yesterday because it was freezing. I did do it. But I find that it gives me the power to work into the night, which, like yourself, I'm doing because of the UK office at the moment. So it kind of wakes me up again. Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to sometimes. It seems easier to discipline yourself when you have different places to go because you can build it into your day like you do with your walk. But when you're just at home, I find the discipline a bit harder. Right, another question we always ask everyone, and I'm sure you've been asked this a fair few times, podcasts or books. So people are always looking for things to read or listen to, and you don't have to give me both, but you're more than welcome to. Is there anything that you have found particularly inspiring in recent times that people might not know about? So try not to maybe talk about something that everybody's already heard of, maybe something that's a little bit offbeat that you've discovered that other people might enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So HBR do a fantastic podcast, which really keeps you on top of, I'm certainly a people geek, so anything to do with human behaviour I absolutely love. And also, you would have heard of Brené Brown. She's very inspiring, but I actually love TED Talks. I don't have a lot of time to read books, so when a new book comes out, I will tend to jump on and listen to the TED Talk from the author before deciding to actually purchase a book. And you can find them so inspiring, and just they give you little nuggets. It's really great. And TED Talks are something good also to send out to your employees or your managers when you do find some good ones, because it doesn't take them a lot of time to listen to them, or you can listen to them while you're cooking dinner or doing other things.
Absolutely. Now, I'm a massive fan of TED Talks. I have to agree. I really do enjoy them. I think it's because they're short and quick and easy. Okay, now this is a question I'm really interested to hear your answer on. I've heard a few of other people within your businesses, but I want to know from your aspect, why would someone, if someone's watching the show, and a lot of people watch this show who are interested in moving into the startup or scale-up sector, right? That's probably the biggest part of our audience. Why would someone want to come and work for Employment Hero? If there's someone that's either at another startup or scale-up, or maybe hasn't even stepped into that, what in your eyes is the best reasons to want to come and work for you guys?
As I've mentioned, purpose-driven. We live by our purpose, and it's just so inspiring to work for a company that lives by their purpose. Mm-hmm. Also, Ben Thompson is incredibly entrepreneurial, and he pushes us as a leadership team out of our comfort zone on a weekly, if not daily basis. And so we try and do that to our team. So you certainly grow and you learn. You'd never have a dull day. And I would never work for a company that's not fun. We're so much fun. At the moment, we're doing Drag Queen Bingo. We've got Magic Mike the comedian, not the stripper, this Friday.
Well, you followed on
lots of
drag
fun, and we
queen
try to
bingo,
build
so
that
it
in.
could have been either, right? It could have gone either way.
Yeah. And look, our people, we just have the most incredible people. Look, we don't get it right every time. I can't say that, we don't have attrition, but we do have people that really live by our purpose and live by wanting to have fun, and they care for one another, which I've really seen during lockdown. It's just been absolutely wonderful to see each other take care of each other and helping, those parents that are struggling with homeschooling and lockdown, or we have expats stuck at home in their bedroom all day because they're sharing an apartment with 3 people. So to have that support and watch everyone support each other equally and inclusively has just been so touching.
That's awesome. Look, I'm homeschooling, and I have to say it's a little bit easier than last year because they're a little bit older, but it's awful. There is nothing good about it. I don't think they're learning anything. I really don't. I honestly sometimes sit there and go, is this really worth all the pain and the stress? Because I actually don't think much is going in at all. But look, that's just part of life at the moment. Okay, look, Alex, I have really enjoyed sort of getting to know a little bit more about you this time. It's been great. Thank you so much for being our #1 virtual guest. I'm so sorry we didn't get to meet in the studio, and maybe we'll get you back at some point in the next year or so, maybe when you launch into another country, because I think there's a lot of countries still planned to go, aren't there? Right? I think you've gone, just quickly, you've done the UK, you've done Singapore, right?
Singapore, UK, Malaysia, and New Zealand.
Yeah, and there's another 4 or 5 to come, I think, in the coming years. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. So Seek are one of our investors. So we're partnering with them from a strategic perspective to go in and expand into a lot of countries that they're in. So, for example, they fill 80% of jobs in Southeast Asia for small to medium businesses. So that's a distribution channel that we'd be stupid not to look at strategically.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do another episode completely about global expansion, because I think we are coming across a lot more startups every day that want to do that from Australia. So maybe when we can actually sit down and be together.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Because it's not easy.
No, I'm doing it myself. It's so much harder than I thought. But Alex, thank you so much. And go and enjoy your day, probably sitting at that very same spot working.
Yep, you too, and enjoy your 3:30 swim.
Thanks, Alex.
See you. Bye.